Okay, great. We are now recording. All right, welcome everybody. Thank you for joining us here today. My name is Jeff Leichtnam with Chicago Title, and we are starting our annual fiscal year 2025 data call training seminar. Many of you have been here before. Some of you are new, but all of you are welcome here, and I do encourage everybody to ask questions. So feel free to interrupt me as we go along. Love to make this interactive. We're going to try and get through this pretty quick. I know everyone is busy. We're in the middle of the day here, so I'm sure many of you have closings and other things to get done. The data call is a required exercise by New York State Department of Financial Services. If you have not participated in this previously, the portal is something that has been generated by Fidelity National Financial, our parent company. So we do put this together at great expense. We monitor it and compile all the revenue and expense data by our ECs and agents. And we submit that into the Department of Financial Services through TERSA. And one of the most important things to remember is that we don't submit all of your data individually. It is all compiled together as one lump sum and then submitted into the DFS. So while all your data is important, we don't put it in there all so that they see it as your individual data. The only thing that we do have to report, though, individually is whether or not an agent does or does not report. So we do keep track of that. What the DFS does with that information, we don't know. That's up to them and how that affects what they do. They do tell us that these numbers are important in rate setting information and on how they prepare that every year. So it's our duty to go ahead and ask our agents and ECs to help us in compiling this information. So your participation is important and we do appreciate it. So with that said, I'm going to go ahead and jump right in. I'm going to share my screen.
One second.
If you have questions, please feel free to jump in. First things first, hopefully everybody can see this. You will see the login screen. Can everybody see that? And that is the screen that you will use to log in. And that is from datacalls.fnf.com. I'm using what they call a sandbox. So it's actually datacallsuat.fnf.com. Yours is going to be slightly different. So this is just a training site. But what you will actually get is an invitation from FNF administrator. So that is the email that you will get. If you don't have that email from FNF administrator, let me know and I can have the email resent to you or to a contact within your organization to go to the appropriate person. Within that invitation is a link. And when you click on that link, it'll bring you into this site for you to log in. You log in with your email address and you then create or use an existing password. And we do have what you may already be familiar with is multi-factor authentication or MFA. MFA, I don't love it. In fact, I don't even like it, but it is necessary. All FNF and Chicago Title applications that are external are required. And you probably notice this through a lot of other applications that you utilize in your everyday life. So we do require this. And if you have difficulty with MFA, please let me know, or you can reach out to the site, the email address that's on here as well. It is nydatacalls@fnf.com, and I'll show you that in a minute. So I'm going to go ahead and log in here first and get you going.
Caller email.
All right, thank you. Bye.
Again, this is just a preview site. So I sign in. And I'm going to select the agent that I'm logging in for. Again, these are demos. And I submit. And this is taking me right to my home screen here. Okay, so you have your introduction and a little bit about what the data call is, the accounting, and agents with multiple underwriters. This is important here. If you see over on the right-hand side here, underwriters, some of you, most of you are going to see on here Chicago Title Insurance Company. Those that have multiple underwriters, such as Fidelity National Title or say Commonwealth or Ticor, you may see multiple underwriters on this side, and you may have to report under multiple underwriters. For the most part, you may only have just one underwriter to report to, and you would click on that link, and then you would begin your submission. Before I go into that, though, I want to just point out on the right-hand side here, there's a drop-down. And here you can change password, you can reset your multi-factor, you can reach out for help and find a contact. So you can feel free to use all of this. Again, if you get stuck, feel free to reach out to me or your designated contact within your market, and they will be happy to help you. So I'm going to click on my underwriter, Fidelity National. And this is a little how-to box. This pops up every time. And how to complete the forms on the site. This is kind of helpful. You're going to be able to select the zones, and I'll show you how to do this as well. Complete all the items. You're not going to be able to submit unless you complete every field on the form. And you're going to have to validate at the end, and I'll show you how to do that as well. There's non-critical warnings and there's critical warnings. This is very important. I get this question a lot, especially on the very first page is, hey, Jeff, I've got this warning here that says my income information here on line 5 is giving me a warning. Should I still be able to submit? Well, is it a critical warning or a non-critical warning? No, it's non-critical. Okay, you can still submit with a non-critical warning. And I'll show you that once we get to that point on the page. Non-critical warnings are generally things that you should be aware of. It may be something that's a little bit off, but you can still move forward. A critical warning means you got to fix it before you can submit. As we move down here, again, applicable, please review the forms. And then you're going to go into validate, you're going to submit, and I'll show you how to do all of that as well. Okay. You can hide this at login so you don't see it every time, but I'm going to leave it open. Okay, so here we are on the very first page. Again, this may be redundant for a lot of you, but I'm going to review this for everybody here. Income data. This is the very first thing that I would like everyone to see. You can print screen this, or you can write it all down, whatever you want, but click on this box. And this is where you're going to get all your policy charges and endorsement charges and the accounts that you did for the previous fiscal year. So a lot of times I like to just do a print screen and save it, or you can actually print it out and refer back to it. This is going to be how you populate page 1. So you can see here, I did for zone 1, I did 18 endorsements and 62 policies. Zone 2, I did a lot more. And then I have my totals here as well. So I do a print screen and then I close that out. And then I move forward. So I'm going to leave both my zones open here. Okay, so a lot of you only did work in zone 1. Now, I'll lay that out for you as well. Zone 1 refers to upstate New York, meaning everything above, like, I think it's Westchester County and above. Maybe it's a little bit higher. So you have everything west of that area. So you have Buffalo, Rochester, Syracuse, even parts of like Albany and north of that. And then down south in the New York City region area, that's zone 2. where they don't really have the EC relationship. Okay, if you wrote policies in there, we'll probably know about it and we're going to put that in your income data box. Okay, and you need to fill out that column there. If you don't have anything in zone 2, uncheck the box. Okay, and then you don't have to do anything there and it's grayed out. You don't have to worry about it. So that's 50% of your work already taken care of for you right there. If you want to refer back to last year's, you say, Jeff, what did I do last year? How did I fill this out? You don't even have to ask me. Just download last year's right here. Click on this link and it'll populate right here for you. You can save it and come right up here on your computer for you in case you didn't do that last year. So that's one little new feature we added last year for you. So I'm going to go ahead and start filling this out for you here. Policy charges. Now, I don't remember exactly what I had on here, but I'm just going to go ahead and start doing this for you here. So I'm just going to fill in with some numbers here. So say I did 25 policies with revenue of 50,000. I did endorsements of say 10 at 10,000. Special charges is always going to be typically 0, but you'll see that on your income data. So you'll see on here, it's almost all, I've almost never seen anything on special charges here for an EC. Okay, line 5. This is where you need to probably pull out your calculator. And it's going to be 40% for those that are 60/40 ECs, depending on your EC relationship. So say it depends on if you're a 65/35 or a 70/30 or a 60/40. Depends on how you calculate that out, but you need to determine the amount that gets remitted to the underwriter. So whatever is retained by Chicago Title gets inserted here, plus the endorsements. And if you have a split on endorsements or not, that gets put in there as well. So that's how you calculate that what gets put into here. So say I'm a 60/40 EC and 40% comes back to Chicago Title, 50,000 times 0.4, 20,000 plus, and then we don't split on endorsements here, so plus 10,000. So we get 30,000 coming back to Chicago Title. Closing and escrow income, generally going to be 0 because you are an EC. Section 2G related income, 0. These are always going to be 0. Other income, 0. You hit save and move on next. Page 2. All right, you can see right on here under the expense section. Also, one thing to note here, form progress up at the top, you see 11%. You'll always see where our percentage is at. Once you get to 100, you know you finished. Abstract exam search fees, zone 1. Again, you are an EC, not a full agent, so don't expect to have any expenses here. Recording expenses, 0. Survey expenses, again, you would not have these, as usually passed on. Reading expenses, typically going to be 0. Closer fees, these are typically 0 as well. And legal counsel fees, again, you're the attorney, so typically going to be 0. Purchase of copies of public records, if you do happen to have fees on this, you can read the description here. You would enter something in here. Again, these are going to be fees that are related to title insurance. So not necessarily for general real estate, but if it's related to title insurance. Municipal charges, again, we don't have that in here, in this area here. So that's usually 0. Typing expenses, again, Chicago Title usually does the typing on policies. So you would enter 0 here. We save this. When you hit next, it automatically saves for you, but I like to save as I go along just in case I get distracted. Okay, here is where you're going to want to enter in some data here. And there's two areas under salary, under the expense section here. Number one, under this is your total amount of salaries that you would enter as it pertains to title insurance. And the way I usually explain this to people is if title insurance represents, say, 10% of your firm's income for the previous year, then you would take 10% of the salaries and enter them there. And that's all of the employees, including yourself, if you worked on title insurance. So you would technically be considered an employee, the attorney. And you would enter them here, the sum total. Okay, so say that would be 5,000. Okay, now you have to hit this box right here and you take the top 5. So say for a larger firm, there might be 10 people that are actually engaged in title insurance. And you would take the top 5 and enter in not their names, but their titles. So you have, say, attorney and paralegal. Okay, and attorney, again, not their title, their total salary, but total as it pertains to title insurance, and you need to prorate that. Okay, so, and it cannot exceed the total amount that you put in to that box on line 20 there. So those two should add up to that total amount of $5,000 that I put in there. So say we put in 3,000 here and 2,000 here. The rest of these we put in NA and 0 because all the fields have to be populated. And we hit return and we go back. Next is employee benefits. Again, if you're paying benefits to your employees, you may need to put in a certain amount here. I'm not going to tell you what to put in, but that's, again, how you calculate your expenses. Payroll taxes, same again here. If you're calculating that and keeping track of that, again, as it applies to title insurance. Rent, if you are typically renting or leasing office space, you may want to put in a number here. And again, I prorate based on the amount, like I had mentioned earlier with salaries. If it's 10%, take 10% of your rent. If you own, you may want to do, say, for the mortgage or the value of the property. So I'm going to do something here and 0 here. Real estate taxes, not if I'm renting. And taxes, licenses, and fees. So say you are maintaining your license through the DFS, which typically is $80, I believe, every 2 years. So putting in $40 for the year here. Advertising and marketing, you'll see right on here, the very first line, TRSA is not expecting any data to be entered in this section that can be applied to other lines. Generally, they're just not expecting anything to be put in here because under Regulation 208, they do not expect any type of advertising from title agents. So typically, you can put in a 0 under all of these fields. Make sure you're filling out every field. It can be a little tedious, I know, but we want to make sure you get through this the first time. and be done. The grayed out area, don't worry about it. Don't add any line items. Just hit return and you're done. And then this next one here. Go in and fill all these out. There's a lot in this one. Okay. Title plant and maintenance. We maintain a title plant here in Chicago Title. Typically, you don't because you are an EC and not an agent. Typically would be a 0. And policy issuance expense. We issue the policy as an EC. Unless you are a policy issuing EC, you may not have any expenses here. 0, 0, and return. And save. And next. We are 66% of the way through here. Is there anybody that has any questions so far? I don't see any hands raised. That's great. We're flying through. Okay, next, travel. Again, Tersa's not expecting any data here that can be applied anywhere else. There may be a couple of sections here that could be entered, but under travel, typically not. However, so transportation, if you're driving to closings or driving to the clerk's office, things along those lines, you're keeping track of that. You may want to enter in some mileage amounts here and putting those things in there. It's totally up to you, again, if you're keeping track. Hotels and lodging, typically not. Meals and beverages, typically no. Sporting tickets, I would highly advise against that. Theater tickets, no. Other tickets, no. Again, you can move along right through this and fly right through typically. Printing and office supplies, again, as it applies to title insurance, you may see some expense items here if you're keeping track. Postage, a lot of folks use UPS and FedEx to mail things out to clients. You may see some expense items in here. Equipment depreciation, yes, you might see some printers, fax machines, hopefully not fax machines, computers, a lot of things, phones, things along those lines. Software, if you're using certain types of software for your title insurance, if you're using computers, things along those lines, you can enter in there. Errors and omissions insurance, obviously as an EC with Chicago Title, we do require E&O through your malpractice. So you may want to prorate a portion of that, again, as it pertains to title insurance and how much that represents as part of your practice. So say if, again, I use the example, if it's 10%, take 10% there. So other insurance, typically you're not going to see anything here. Director's fees, if you're a director on a board for a title insurance related foundation or organization, you may want to see something here. Legal and auditing, typically no. Interest, typically nothing here. Another box that we're going to need to go through and look at. Deductibles paid. Typically, we're not expecting to see anything under these. Any loss or legal related expenses, if you had a claim in the previous year, you may want to look through here and see if there's anything along those lines. But typically, you might see zeros all throughout here. Okay, now we move on into one of our final sections here, and this is number of employees. And you need to count yourself here, along with any other staff. And you don't have to count yourself as a full number, like a whole employee, if you are only doing a portion of your time on title insurance. So say you spend 25% of your time on title insurance, you can count yourself as a 0.25. And same thing for any other employees. So say you have two employees, both doing 0.25, that would add up to a 0.5. And that completes page 4 and puts me at 100%. Okay. So it looks like I'm done and I've gone through all 4 pages and I've got everything completed here. And I filled out everything that I've done for zone 1. I don't need to do anything for zone 2 because I didn't have any income for zone 2. Does anybody have any questions so far? Because I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to show you what we need to do on the next page.
Jeff, where did we put in the exam fees? I missed that.
Yes, sure. I will. Let me go back. It's a good question. Okay. So exam fees, I believe that goes under one of these blue boxes. Sec. Under general expenses. Hmm.
Is it line 11?
11. What's that, page 2? Let's see here. Insurance premiums. Yeah, I think you're right. Just reading through this. Within the range, these fees are separate charge paid for by the insured seller, so not an agent expense. I think this might be the most appropriate spot, but I am going to double check with the admin team. And I will get back with you if that's okay. And I'll send out a memo to everybody on that for those. Because I think that is probably the most appropriate spot is where to put that.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'll get back with you. Great question. Okay, so here we are on the summary page here for page 5. And as you can see here, I've got basically a total of my gross insurance charges, my retained, and my total expenses, and my net percentage. Now, if you see at the bottom here, my net percentage, this is a little bit higher than where we would expect. We would expect you to be anywhere between, say, 10 to 50% of your expenses, of your net margins. Okay. So this is a little bit high. So for purposes of right now, I think we'll just go ahead and move forward. But one place where I would recommend looking at then would be probably in salaries, and saying, okay, maybe your salaries might be a little bit low here. And you might need to go back considering, how high the revenue was. Or I might have some expenses that might be a little bit low on page 4. So I might go back to the EC and just say, hey, you should probably look at some of these expenses and maybe you missed a few here. So I do review everyone's expenses just to make sure that we are hitting all the right fields, and making sure that we're also not putting in expenses in some of the wrong fields as well, because things do get flagged from an accounting perspective, because we don't want to remit things into DFS that are incorrect, even if it's just a small amount, because they do keep a close eye on a lot of these things. So take a close look at that before you submit and validate, and make sure that net percentage is a decent number, somewhere around 15 to 50%. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and validate here. And it's been saved and validated, and I can proceed to my review page. And I've got a warning. So if you remember, it told me that I told them in the beginning there was non-critical warnings and critical warnings. Right here, we have a non-critical warning based on the gross title insurance charges entered. The amount remitted to underwriter does not fall within the expected range. Please verify. Again, most people are going to get this warning because the form is created for full agents that we have from Fidelity, with higher maybe remittances or lower remittances. So the percentages might be a little bit off than what it expects. So it might flag this and say, hey, there's a warning here, something might be off. You don't have to worry about that as long as you know what your splits are and that you are putting in the right amount that's going to the underwriter, then you can still remit. So I'm going to go ahead and say, yes, I'm done. I checked this. By checking this box, you affirm that everything is done correctly, and you go ahead and submit with warnings. When you do that, I'll get an email, and Carmen will also get an email, and we'll go ahead and review, take a look through that, and we can either approve it or we kick it back to you for further review. And we'll say, hey, listen, you need to fix this, you need to fix that. Please redo this and then resubmit. Other than that, if we approve it, then you're done. And you'll get another email saying, thank you very much. You're all set for 2025, and we'll look forward to seeing you next year. As far as that goes, I do want to show you just real quick, if you have questions on who to reach out to. I'm going to show you the second here. Does everybody see my PowerPoint here? Hope so.
No, it's your computer background.
Oh. How about now?
Yes.
Okay, great. All right. So again, if you have trouble with multi-factor, if you have trouble with your password, if you have any trouble whatsoever, you can reach out to nydatacalls@fnf.com, or you can reach out to me or your local rep. We are happy to help. You have from now until April 20th to go ahead and get your submission in. And please don't wait until the very end. We are here to help. Everyone at Chicago Title is more than willing to get on a phone call with you, pop into your office and sit down with you and go through the form, make sure that you're able to log in and navigate through multi-factor authentication. And I appreciate all your time today. Does anybody else have any other questions? I see somebody in the chat here. Let's see. Anybody else? Are we all good? All right. Well, thanks again, everybody.
Thank you,
Enjoy the
Jeff.
rest of your afternoon.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Jeff.